Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm super excited, to be sharing at the Shamar Moms Conference. And this is really, really an important conversation that, we're having in this season, a conversation that is very valid in this season, reaching your wellness potential, especially as mothers, because I don't know, mothers are like the engine house of the home. Mothers are like the engine house of the home. And it is, if a mother is not functioning well, the home is not going to function well. If a mother is not functioning well, the home is not going to function well. So the conversation around reaching our wellness potentials as mothers is a very, very valid conversation, especially in this time where we have this culture of thinking that striving and stressing means is a source of validation, so to say. We derive our worth by how much we're doing. So there are a lot of people under immense stress, immense pressure. There are a lot of mothers who think that how much they are doing, how much they are stressing is the validation for how good a mother or a wife they are. It's a culture thing, is a conditioning, is it is how we have been groomed, right? What's your how many yards of wife material are you? Is usually measured by how much you can do, how much stress you can take in, how much pressure you can do, what you can do to impress your husband, your in-laws, and the people around, and all of that. But then it's telling on us. And when we get into that vicious cycle of being stressed, giving and giving and seemingly not receiving as much, we become, cranky, aggressive, full of strife. We start to feel neglected, and it spirals into a lot of things, right? So it's time for us as mothers, as parents, to look at how we're doing things. So this is me saying that this conversation is a very important one, and we have an amazing lineup of speakers. Thank you, sis Ruth Haruna, for putting this together. If you're watching me, if you're listening, you should be grateful that you're part of this community and that you are hearing this conversation at this time. And I urge every one of us to take on the lessons that we are getting from these sessions and use them, implement them, so that we can thrive as mothers. And when we thrive, the people in our care will also thrive, right? When a mother is thriving, everybody that is in their care will also thrive because the mother is thriving, right? So I have an assignment this evening to share with us as regards to reaching our wellness potential. I'm sharing about how you can create a parenting plan. How you can create a parenting plan. We're in 2023. This is the first week of the month. And of course, if you're on social media, everywhere is about goals. What goals have you set? What are you achieving this year? People have 10-point agendas, 15-point agendas, and all of that. And there's that tendency to feel pressured and to look at yourself and ask yourself if you're doing enough. And I'm not saying goals are bad, very, very important goals, right? I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying that you're not supposed to set goals or you're not supposed to hit the ground running. But what I'm saying is that we should reconsider how we do things. Instead of being driven by the externals, instead of being driven by what other people are doing, instead of measuring our worth with the yardstick of your neighbor or somebody on social media or someone you look up to, instead of measuring your goals with that of someone you have seen on social media or your contemporaries, it's important that we look inside and be in tune with ourselves, be in tune with our journey. be in tune with where we are on our journey and what God is doing with us and through us as we set our goals and make our plans for the year. So, for example, a mother who has just given birth, who is a nursing mother, cannot be comparing herself to a mother who has teenagers and, is able to do some things. Of course, if you're a nursing mother, you'll be limited at, by the fact that you're nursing, and you cannot do as much as you might want to do, right? I'm not saying being a nursing mother will incapacitate you, but it's only realistic that there are some things you naturally would have loved to do, but because you have a baby in your care, you may not be able to do them, considering the support that you might have. And it's okay, because it's a season. It's okay because it's a season. I have seen a lot of mothers who are in a very dark place, who are depressed because they're measuring themselves and their seasons based on what they see on social media, based on what they see other mothers do. You have some mothers who give birth and probably their bodies are not coming back as they wanted to, but because they go on social media and see the other woman who is posting 2 weeks postpartum and we have snapped back, they start to wonder if there is anything wrong with them, right? So it's time for us to stop measuring ourselves based on what other people are doing. It's time for us to start adopting practices that keep us grounded, keep us centered, and keep us focused on ourselves, on where we are on our journey, especially when it comes to motherhood and where we want to go in that journey, right? So the first thing when it comes to parenting planning is to know where you even want to go, because vision and direction is what guides the actions or the everyday conversations and decisions that you make, right? Where do you want to go? What kind of mother do you want to be? What kind of children do you want to raise? You might want to close your eyes for a few minutes and ask yourself that question. By the time you're 70 years, by the time you're 60 years, by the time you're 50 years, and your children are 20, 30, 40, what picture do you want to see? What kind of phone calls do you want to be having with your children? What kind of Christmas holidays do you want to be having? What kind of children do you want surrounding your dining table? What kind of stories do you want your children to tell your grandchildren about you? Right. I have a friend who up until now is still angry with her mother for dying young. Her mother died at the age of 40 something, and she blames him because she felt that the mother was overworking herself, doing a lot of things that she was not supposed to do, even abandoning them in like hustling and all of that. Of course, the woman was doing it out of love to provide for them, but she in her heart, maybe she has forgiven her, but if she has, it hasn't been long. For a long time, she was angry, obviously angry with her mom, that her mom just was stressing herself, and it was the stress that killed her. So what kind of conversation do you want your children to have with their own children about you? What kind of outlook do you want them to have about you? What kind of relationship do you want to have, do you want to have with them, later on in life? What kind of stories do you want them to tell about their own childhood and the relationship that they had with you, right? What kind of human beings do you want your children to be, right? What kind of relationship do you want them to have with their creator? How do you want them to show up in the world? Do you want to raise children who do not have a sense of purpose, a sense of direction? Or do you want to raise children that by the time they are leaving your home, they have a sense of purpose and a sense of direction? These are questions you want to ask yourself, and these questions will help you have a clear vision of the kind of children that you want to raise, right? And then when you have this clear in your mind, it now starts to help you to set goals. And you can set your goals annually. You can set your goals every 5 years, depending on the age of your children. Remember that you have 18 years to actively parent your children. You have 18 years to actively parent your children. So if you have a 10-year-old child right now, you have essentially 8 years to parent them. And if that child is going to go to boarding school, you have maybe 2 years, because by the time they are 12, heading to boarding school, you only get to spend 3 weeks, 4 weeks with them. And, that's all you get to spend during the term times and the holidays. And if they are smart and they, finish their SSCE, they write WAEC, they're heading into the university. And from the university, you're seeing them maybe 3 weeks in a semester, or 1 month in a semester. And before you know it, they finish their uni and they are leaving. Maybe they get a job, they go for NYSC if you're in Nigeria, and it just goes on and on from there. So we don't have as much time as we think we do. So we have to have clear visions and then start putting in the work and the actions, right? But before I get to how you can break your vision down into smaller goals and implementable actions, I want to make you understand that for you to achieve whatever you have envisioned, you need to be a kind of person. And you need to imbibe some kind of principles and some kind of practices for you to actually be that parent who can enforce, plan, stay focused on the goals that you set, and eventually achieve that vision, that overall vision that you have. Right? There are simple practices. Most people think that life is about living from the outside in. So we wake up every morning, we jump out, we hustle, we do. It's always like action on the go, and you feel like, oh, I'm productive, I'm ticking out the boxes. But that is not how life is. Life is from the inside in. You have to be grounded. You have to be in tune with yourself and connected with your source before you can step out and act. When 2023 is just January and people have already hit the ground running, people already have great, plans and list of things to do. How many people actually sat down to ask and say, God, this is a new year. How would you want me to plan? What is our project? What do you want us to do this year? Where are you taking me this year? What's the direction this year? Before they started planning. Most people do not do that. Most people do not acknowledge God in their plans. And we don't want to be those kind of people, even when it comes to our parenting, especially when it comes to our parenting, right? So we have to be those kind of people who always stay grounded, are in tune with ourselves and connected to our source, not just at the beginning of the year, but to make it an everyday practice. If you are a parent, especially parents of younger people, in fact, not just parents of younger people, because every stage of parenting comes with its own challenges. You would know that parenting is challenging. And then if you couple it with the external challenges of life, and you couple it with the work that you have to do on a personal level and every other thing that is calling your attention, then you would know that we need to always practice mindfulness. We need to always practice self-care. We need to always stay grounded if we want to be those kind of parents who will raise the kind of amazing kids and purposeful kids that we envision to raise. Right? So you don't want to be that kind of parent who is always cranky, who is always overwhelmed, who is always too tired to look at what is going on, who has their eyes up and not connected or in tune with what is happening in their children's life. You don't want to be that kind of person. There are a few practices I share with parents that can help you stay grounded, right? Over the years, I've been a parenting coach for over 6 years. And over the years, I've seen this pattern repeat itself. So I developed a framework where I say, as a parent, especially as mothers, Try as much as possible to put yourself on your to-do list. This is something we don't do often. As I'm talking about this parenting plan, a lot of us have already brought out our pen and paper and want to take on, notes. So what do I do? How do I plan my parenting? What do I do for my, kids and all of that, without looking at what we can do for ourselves and how we can take care of ourselves, because you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? So make it an important thing that this year, self-care, reflection, and meditation are on top of your list. Self-care is what makes you fill your own cup so that you can pour into the cups of those who are in your care. Reflection is what helps you look at how you're doing things, to see if you're headed in the right direction, to see if your actions are aligned, to helping you achieve the goals that you have, right? And meditation is what helps you go deep into yourself to connect with your core and the higher source, which is God for us Christians, to get inspiration for the things that you can do. So I'll take that again if you did not get it, right? There are 3 things that are important if you must do this motherhood right. Number 1 is self-care. Very important, because that's what helps you refill, rejuvenate, and fill your own cup so that you can be able to pour into the cups of those that are in your care. The second thing is reflection. Very important, because reflection is what helps you to pay attention to how you're doing things so that you can see what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and if your actions, behaviors, and communications and interactions are aligning you and leading you to the vision that you have for yourself and your child. And then meditation. Meditation is how you get in tune to yourself and connect to the higher source. That higher source for us Christians is God, right? So that you can get inspiration for how you can do things and how you can do motherhood and how you can do parenting. Your source is not social media. Your source are not coaches. God can use a coach to bring wisdom, but then you must engage these practices if you even want to implement and maximize the wisdom that these coaches share with you, right? So very, very important. So every day on your to-do list, while you write all the things that you need to do for the family, how you do school run, how you cook, and how you do this and do that, and all the things you have to teach your kids, you must have yourself on your to-do list, even if it's for a 10 minutes time alone. You must do something you love, one thing you love. Some of us become mothers and then we forget ourselves. We forget ourselves, we forget that there are things we used to enjoy before we became mothers. We don't even engage in anything for ourselves. And we might think it's sacrifice because we have to care for our kids, but then how does that make you feel? Because in the long run, you become that person who is looking at, oh, I'm doing so much for you people, and you people are not even recognizing it. You people are not even appreciating what I'm doing, right? You don't want to put yourself in that position. As much as you do for every other person, you need to do for yourself to create balance so that you're also a happy person and that the energy in your home will be happy. Because if you're not happy, the energy in your home will be toxic. So this is why self-care is very, very important, right? So practice it. Practice it. Practice reflection. Many of us don't reflect on our actions. You have a squabble with your kids now, and you just sweep it under the carpet. It goes. You don't reflect. You don't think about what happened. How did we get there? Why did I shout? What triggered me? How can we do this thing? How can we do it better next time? And that is why we find ourselves in the same cycle. This year, you are that mother who was always shouting, the neighbors always hear your voice, you're always beating your kids. The next year, you're the same person. You keep on telling yourself, I don't even know, these children are they are not making you do anything. You're choosing your actions and you're repeating that cycle because you're not reflecting. If you reflect, you will see what you're doing and then you start seeking solution to solve that problem. How do you reflect? I have a simple practice or a simple routine for reflecting, right? There are two things. I start my day right and I make sure I end my day right. How do I start my day? I start my day with gratitude, with prayers, and with intention. So I wake up in the morning, like every other Christian, I say my prayers. And then I say my gratitude. What are the things I'm grateful for? I'm grateful for who I am. I'm grateful for salvation. I'm grateful for the children I have. I'm grateful for the family I have. Then I set my intention for the day. I have intentions for different aspects of my life, my career, my relationship, and then my parenting. So you can set an intention and say, today I want to show up as the best mom for my children. I want to be kind. I want to be loving. I want to be sensitive to their needs. So what your intention does is that it helps you bring yourself to a level of consciousness because you have set that intention. You are now aware of it and you have a higher chances of, attracting and achieving that in your day. So you set your intention. That's how you start your day before you move on. And how can you achieve this? You achieve this by trying to have a great solid routine that helps you wake up before every other person. Because what happens is that when all of us wake up in the morning at the same time, you start and it's time to prepare the children for school. The hassle has already started because you have not even started your day right. You just start and jump into the busy routine. So wake up, even if it's 10 minutes before every other person, have that silent time alone. Say your own personal prayers before the family prayers. Set your intention for the day. Before the kids start waking up, you are mentally ready, for whatever drama that might come with preparing in the morning because you have set your intention. And then I end my day well. Most of us, we go through the day, we, attract all the energy, all the positive and the negative energy, and then we just come back home and then we're tired. Some of us who have small children, maybe when we're putting the children to sleep, we'll just sleep from there and we forget. And then you wake up in the next morning, you're feeling stressed and you're wondering why you're stressed. You're stressed because you carried the burden of yesterday into today without resolving it. And that is why some of us wake up very overwhelmed, right? How do you solve that? Try and make a commitment that before you sleep, that you're going to wrap up your day well. How do you wrap up your day well? Think about what happened in the day. What are the things that happened, that made you happy? Stay grateful for those things. What are the things? Where did you mess up? Where did somebody trigger you and all of that? Forgive yourself for the ones that are your errors. Forgive people where it is their errors. If you need to have a conversation with someone, based on what happened in your day, then note it down that tomorrow I'm going to have this conversation with this person based on this thing that happened today, right? Then forgive yourself. Give yourself grace for maybe if you made a mistake, maybe you made a mistake at work and your boss shouted at you. Acknowledge what you have done or whatever your boss has done to you, and then promise yourself that you're going to do better. You had a squabble with your child. Think about it. Why did we have this squabble? How did we get here? Acknowledge the things that you did wrong, the things that you need to teach your child. A conversation you may want to have, with your child, or something, or a routine that you want to create at home to avoid that squabble from happening again. So you close your day well, you forgive yourself, and then you plan for the next day. That way, when you're waking up the next morning, your head is clear. You're not carrying the burden of the previous day. You will see, this thing is a simple practice, but it can change your life. If you start to do this, it can change your life. It will give you peace. It will change your life. So this is very important. And this reflection also infuses meditation. Meditation, I know a lot of us have heard meditation. There are different versions of meditation, but meditation simply means sitting still, quietening all the noise in your mind. Sitting still, just quietening all the noise in your mind and being in the here and in the now. It's a very hard thing to do, but if you start to do it, even if it's 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, you will see how clear your mind will be. And a clear mind is a fertile ground for inspirations. A clear mind is a fertile ground for the Holy Spirit to speak. A lot of us do not hear from God because our mind and our insides are so noisy, so filled with noise, so filled with distraction. So this year, make these things practices, and you will see how your life will change, how your health will improve. That's your heart that is always pounding, that tiredness you're always feeling. You will see how they will disappear. These are simple, life practices coupled with maybe eating well, getting sunshine, having exercise, moving your body and all of that. These practices takes care of your inside, right? So this is, I needed to start from here, to keep us grounded, so that when you're now saying, okay, I want to plan, what I want to do this year in my parenting and with my kids, you have gotten these practices that will keep you grounded as a mom, as a mother. First of all, then we can move into the areas that you need to focus if you want to plan, on how to take care of your children's behavior, through the course of the year. And when it comes to parenting practice, parenting planning, there are 5 areas that I like to, to point parents to, right? And I use the acronym BATS. This is a framework I teach parents in my program that I call One Parenting Plan Away. And it is a program where I co-created it with one of my colleagues. It's a program where we teach parents and we sit down with parents and plan out a 1-year plan, that you can use for each of your children, and will keep you accountable throughout the 1 year, where you can implement it. And at the end of the year, we'll come together and review how you have done, and we measure progress, right? So the framework we use is BATS. It's called BATS. And there are 5 areas. That's the behavior, the academic, the talents, the spiritual, and the skills, right? And what this essentially means is that when you want to plan your parenting, you look at your children. You have 3 children. Okay, my son is 10 years, Of course, we also have templates of understanding who each child is, right? So we have assessment to help you know your child's temperament, your child's love language, your child's learning style, so that if you're planning their behavior, their academics, you know who they are and the things you need to focus on, their strengths and weaknesses, so their weaknesses, how do you support those weaknesses, right? So in terms of behavior, you look at the behavior that you're struggling with, right? What are the behaviors you want to improve on in your child, or what are the behaviors you want to teach your child, right? So you pay attention to those. So how many can we start teaching? How many do we want to teach this year? You outline them. So is there a way of breaking it down and focus them into month by month, right? So what are we teaching in January? So we want to teach, let's say, we want to teach maybe you have a child who doesn't know how to control their anger, who is always shouting and who is always fighting or hitting people. So how do we start? Right, we start in January, so we start small, and start teaching him, how to recognize when he's feeling angry, how to, start asking questions like, okay, what are the things that happen before you see yourself exploding like that? Maybe the child will tell you, I feel my heart racing, or I feel my tummy bubbling, or, I feel my chest tight. So that's a sign. So when you feel your chest tight, instead of shouting, what can we start doing? Right. So you start teaching the child those things, and you remember that you have to allow learning to happen. So it's not like if you teach or talk about it today to stop today. You have to be supportive and give the child time, so you can dedicate the whole of January and February and say, this is what we're going to teach you. I'll pay attention to whenever this is happening, and I'll remind him, okay, is your chest tight now? So what do? We walk away. We take a deep breath. We'll go and scream in our pillow, or we'll get our yelling cup and yell inside instead of yelling at somebody or hitting somebody. So that's how you focus on it. After you teach that, you pick another behavior that you want to teach, and then you start on that and focus on that, and allow learning to happen. And before you know it, in the course of the year, you would have changed all the behaviors you're struggling with, or some of the behaviors that you're struggling with. Some others will come up, and then you also map out a plan for them, right? So that's behavior. The same thing with academic. What is your child's academic level? What are they struggling with? What are the subjects they're struggling with? What are the subjects they are good with? They are good in, right? Do we need to get a tutor? Do we need to do extracurricular class? Do I need to take some time or dedicate some time to looking into these subjects and helping my child understand them? The same thing with talents. You pay attention to your children. What are the things that they like? Remember that our goal in this parenting is to align our children with purpose, align them, show them the direction of their purpose. And one of the pointers for your child's purpose is their interest, their talents. Those things are the drivers for them to achieve their purpose. So pay attention to the things they like. Are there things that you need to now focus on, helping them, develop? Your child likes to draw, don't be complaining that they're throwing pieces of paper everywhere they're drawing, you're wasting my A4 papers and all of that. Do we need to send this child to an artist shop to learn how to draw? Do we need to, give this child maybe in a day, dedicate a particular time where he can know that he's doing focused drawing and that we're supporting him, and, we're making this time for him to improve his talent? Spirituality is the same thing. You want to ask yourself how you are introducing your child to God, right? I was having a session with a couple where they told me that one of the things they would like to teach their children is, how to be spiritual and how to love God. And one of the things I asked them is, do you people love God? They said yes. How were you introduced to God? The guy said that his mother was a fierce woman of God. And I said, okay, how were you introduced to God? He said his mom introduced him to God. And now ask him, what is your idea, or what was your idea of who God was? Because I asked that because most of us were introduced to God as this God who is always angry, who is always willing to throw us into hell, and who is always ready to punish us. I don't know if that is how you want to introduce God to your child. That's not how I want to introduce my child to God. I was speaking to a teenager this evening. I was asking her if she prays and what prayer means to her and how she feels after praying. And she said to her it's mechanical, that she just feels she's talking to herself. She doesn't feel anything happens when she prays. And that is because of the way that God was introduced to her. So when we talk about spirituality and the goals we want to have for the spiritual lives of our children, we want to pay attention to how we are introducing God and how we are modeling God to them. You want to introduce God to your child as a father, as a friend, as a father who is a listener, as a father they can talk to. And how do you do this? It's actually from how you parent them, from how your husband fathers them. That is their first experience of who God is. Because you cannot tell them that they have a father in heaven if they have not had a relationship with their father on earth. Right? So this is something we want to pay attention to, teach them about God, teach them how to pray, teach them how to have personal devotion. And it's not just about church, it's not just about going to Sunday church. A lot of people are in church, but they don't have personal relationship. A lot of us do not even have personal relationship with God because we're trying to repair how God was introduced to us as children. So we need to do that quickly so that we don't repeat the cycle with our children, right? The next thing, I remember I said BATS, that's BATSS, that's double S, right? So we've talked about behavior, we've talked about academics, we've talked about talent, we've talked about spirituality, and now we talk about skills. What are the skills you need to teach your children? And one of the ways I look at skills is for you to look at the world that they are in and the world that they are going in. What are the skills that they need to, have to survive? What are the hard skills? What are the soft skills that they need to have to survive in the world that you're going to send them into? That's something you have to look into. That's something you have to research and find out, what skills do I need to teach my children so that they can thrive in the world? Emotional intelligence, communication skills, networking skills, life skills that you need to teach them, discipline, consistency, resilience. So you're asking yourself, you list out all of the skills and you're asking yourself, okay, how do we even teach this thing to a 10-year-old? Let's look around the house. What are the things in this house? What are the everything that they do that, we can use to bring this communication up, bring this, these skills of negotiation skills. For instance, you can teach negotiation skills. When your child comes to ask you for something, you don't just say, yes, okay, I'll buy it for you. You tell them to make a presentation and convince you, for why you should buy that thing for them. That's the way you're teaching them to make business presentation, to negotiate, to ask for what they want. So parenting requires a lot of work, but it also requires somebody who is a deep thinker, who can reflect and who can make plans. So you see why I started this conversation from where we started it from. I didn't just want to come and tell you, oh, this is how you plan your parenting. If you are not that kind of person, you will not be able to plan and you will not be able to execute. So I will round off here because I just have a few minutes by saying, let this year be the year that you're very intentional with who you are and who you are becoming, and that you're also very intentional with the child or the children that are in your care. Because at the end of the day, when we stand in front of God, He will ask us how well we have taken care of our children. And what He will use to judge us is not by the big schools that we send them to or by how many degrees we help them acquire. He will judge us based on how we have been able to groom them and align them for the purpose for which He has created them. And this is the whole essence of parenting. I wish us all a very, very beautiful parenting journey. And I pray that we do things right and that our labor of love will be bountifully rewarded in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. Bye.